Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar, which is part of our Postgraduate Open Day here at Maynooth University. And what we'd like to do for the next 45 minutes or so is have a discussion with three distinguished representatives of employers who've agreed to give us very kindly of their time this afternoon to talk a little bit about the value of postgraduate education as they see it and to their organizations in particular. My name is Ray O'Neill. I'm Vice President for Research and also Dean of Graduate Studies here at Maynooth University. So it's a real pleasure to welcome everybody who is interested in potentially studying at Maynooth, and so that we can give you a bit of an introduction to some of the excellent programs that we have. So if I could introduce our panel, we have first of all Dr. Amy Bohan, who is a senior manager in Accenture's technology practice in Dublin. And Amy has agreed to join us to talk a little bit about her experience, both of postgraduate recruitment, but also the value more generally of postgraduate education. We also then have Bennie from Intel. Bennie is responsible for all silicon nanotechnology research at Intel. And is also the main point of liaison for the third level education institutions in Ireland. So he's got wide experience of how all the universities do things and what Intel can benefit from in that. And we also have Lydia Ward. Hi Lydia, welcome. Lydia is from Genesis, which is a company that designs and delivers products for contact centers, a leader in omni-channel customer experience, and Lydia is particularly interested in design innovation. So welcome to all three of you, and a diverse range of perspectives that you bring. So what I'd like to do is start off just by going around our panelists, contributors, and just asking for a couple of minutes to describe your organization, and a little bit about your own background, and what you look for in postgraduate recruits. So if we can, please, we'll start with Amy.
Hey, thanks very much, Ray. So hello to everyone. My name is Amy Bohan. I have my alma mater in Maynooth, where I studied a computer science degree, and I don't like mentioning the year. I then went on, I actually did two postgrads. So I have a research master's in computational linguistics, which I studied in UCD, and loved it so much, I decided to stay on and do a PhD in cognitive science, hence the title. So I then started working in Accenture about 14 years ago. So Accenture, for those of you that don't know it, we are a professional services company offering strategy and consulting, interactive technology and operation services. We operate in over 120 countries. We're not one of the big four, but they're certainly one of they are our competitors. And we specialize in a lot of technology. We specialize in digital cloud security, very much technology, but also in management consulting and operations. So we've got a large footprint in Ireland. We've got over 500,000 people globally. So we're very much a global company as well. I joined Accenture through the graduate program about 14 years ago after my time in university, which I loved and didn't want to leave, and have basically been there ever since. I'm currently now a senior manager in our technology practice, and most of my experience has been with health and public service clients and financial clients, and I specialize in project management and change management. So that's a little bit of background of me and Accenture.
That's great. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yeah. I should have mentioned, of course, to all the participants, what we'd really love to have is some questions from you. And so once we get through a bit of an initial preamble, and we will be accepting questions in the chat, and we'd be very happy to try to answer them. So thank you, Amy. I move on, please, to Bennie from Intel.
Thank you, Ray, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon. I always enjoy conversations with students, so it's always nice to do that. As you can probably tell from the accent, I don't hail from these shores, but I have been here now for 24 years working at Intel, and I'm struggling to get rid of this Yorkshire accent, so apologies for that. But I graduated with a master's degree in engineering from Newcastle Polytechnic a long time ago, and have been working in the semiconductor industry for 34 years, 24 of which are here in Ireland with Intel. I'm sure you're all aware of Intel. It's a large semiconductor organization. It employs about 110,000 people globally, and 5,000 of those folks are over here in Ireland. Most of them are here in County Kildare, just up the road from you in Leixlip. That's the anchor tenant, which is the manufacturing fabrication facility. And in there we produce, some of the world's most complex devices, semiconductor microprocessors. But we also have the Movidius team situated in Leixlip as well. They do the visual AI computing at the edge. So all of you folks who like playing with silicon in that respect, there's opportunity there. And then in Shannon too, we have a data processing group or a 5G network technologies group as well. So that kind of takes care of the 5,000 in Ireland. My role, as Ray said, is I'm the research manager for silicon technology. So what I'm trying to do is figure out how we might make these complicated chips in 10, 15 years from now. And we started that activity here in Ireland, working with our corporate research partners, back in 2004. And some of the stuff that we've done with Irish universities is now actually in production. And that's how long it takes. And it's really quite satisfying to see it happen. And because I work with universities, I also look after our engagements with folks like yourselves. And we have a number of key strategic partnerships, one of which is Maynooth. The 110,000 people globally, about 65% of them are technical. So we do hire an awful lot of technical folks from all disciplines, whether it be science, engineering, computer science, gaming even. The folks that write the code for games are really good for writing code for things like augmented reality and virtual reality, which are becoming more and more commonplace in our factories now. We look for team players, folks that potentially will eventually become really strong leaders, folks that will be creative, resilient, problem solvers, and really good communicators as well, because there's a lot of communication involved in what we do on a daily basis. So yeah, that's what we're about. That's what we like to see coming out of our university relationships, where we see players like yourselves come through with those strong skills, and we like to hire, going forward. So that's it, Ray.
Thank you, Bernie. We'll follow up on some of that in our ongoing discussion. Lots of meaty stuff there indeed. So we'll pass on to Lydia, please. And Lydia, would you like to spend a couple of minutes telling us about yourself and your company?
Yeah, sure. Thanks a million for inviting me to participate in this. I'm really delighted to be back and chatting about Genesis and my role. So yeah, my name is Lydia. I'm originally from Portlaoise, but I'm based in Galway City at the moment, working with Genesis. So I work as a user experience researcher for Genesis, and I'm currently under the product design umbrella that we have. So as part of that team, we have design thinking strategists, product designers, user experience researchers, and design systems team. So yeah, Genesis are a company that design and deliver products for contact centers using AI. And where I work in Galway is the AI research and development hub for Genesis. I have a bachelor's in industrial design that I completed from IT Carlow a couple of years ago, and I worked in marketing and graphic design, but I decided to go back to college and do postgrad because I wanted to return kind of back to my roots in product design. So that's why I decided to do the design innovation masters in Galway, or not in Galway, in Maynooth, and I graduated in 2018/2019. So yeah, I was hired straight out of my master's degree. So at the moment, we're hiring design thinking strategists and also user experiences researchers in Genesis at the moment.
That's great. So all three of you, thank you, have touched on various things that your work generally revolves around. Could I ask each of you what you think is the best thing about working for your organization? So maybe Amy, go in the same order again.
Yeah, so Accenture is a really diverse company in terms of what we offer, in terms of the roles that we offer. So it's very hard for me to say, you need specific skill or otherwise. What the best thing about working in my company is the people, unquestionably. And for me, it's the diversity of work. So we work for clients delivering very different things for very different clients. And I love that. I love the diversity of work. And I love then the moving from client to client. So it's been an amazing experience. I think Bernie touched on a point there about teamwork. That's unequivocally everywhere you go, and I'm sure Lydia will attest to the same. Teamwork is absolutely imperative. Gone are the days where, if they were ever, where someone was sitting in a silo working by themselves. The value of teamwork is massive and very widely accepted as the norm. And that for me is one of the best parts of the job. Even during COVID times, I'm actually working with an offshore team in India, and I'm working for a client in Cork. And even though we're not in the same room, we still have the camaraderie and we still have the teamwork through Teams, through Zoom. So for me, it's the people and the diversity of work. That's what I love about working in Accenture.
Yeah, and I'm sure in big organizations like Accenture, like Intel, a wide range of things. So Bernie, what's your thought? What do you think is most satisfying about Intel?
Well, it's just like Amy said. It's hard to top what her answer actually communicated there. It is about the people and the teamwork. We came over here in '97, as I said in my intro, with the view of maybe staying 2-3 years. And here we are now, and set up home here and have a family and everything. It's because it's a great place to work. The people make it every day. In addition to that, the stuff that I've worked on, the technology in my career I always wanted to make an impact in the world, and the semiconductor industry has really enabled that over the last half century, I would say. So from when I started back in the late 80s, early 90s, we were just putting in the super information highways, all those optical fibers across oceans and continents. I was involved in making the laser sources and the detectors for that. And then, later on in my career, then I come to Intel, and, we have a big role to play in building out the internet. And essentially what we're doing today wouldn't be possible if it hadn't have been for that kind of work. So I just feel really grateful that I've had a chance to make the world a better place for many people through what I do at work. The teamwork is really important. I always say to any students, if you can walk down the corridor between buildings, if you're going from meeting to meeting or going into the factory or whatever it is, and you pass 20 people along the way, and 50% of them say, hello, Bernie, good morning, Bernie, they know who you are. Then you're doing the right thing, because you probably work with them, you've needed them to fix something, a problem. You can't fix things on your own anymore. You've got to have a whole cohort of people around you. So if you're passing people in the corridor that say good morning to you personally, then you're doing the right thing. And that gives you a real good buzz.
Yeah, I'd empathize with that. In the university, the same thing.
Yeah.
It really is all about not just the deep skills we have, but the ability to work with individuals and find new things. And Lydia, I'm sure you think some of the same, but maybe some additional thoughts.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I enjoy about working in Genesis is that when I first joined the company, we had about 2 or 3 designers, and now we have a team of 29. So being a part of the growth over the last 2 years has been an amazing experience for me, and we're still encouraged to experiment and bring new ideas to the table that they take on board. So just at my level, being able to have an impact on that, I think has been fantastic. They're very good at listening to the needs of employees, and another part is that I love working with customers as well. So doing observational work, interviewing customers, and bringing that back to the team is very satisfying for me.
Great, thanks. So I think after that kind of general set of thoughts, maybe there's something a bit more specific that each of you looks for in recruitment, and what the qualities that you're looking for in people who work in your various organizations, and maybe there are some particular courses types of courses that you look to. So anybody like to give some thoughts on that?
I can jump in. The Accenture that I'm working in today is very different from where I started, but there's a couple of things that I think that every company needs. So, you know, non-Accenture specific, communication and teamwork is absolutely paramount. To be able to communicate like online with your teams, with the diversity of teams, with different countries is really important, and the teamwork ability is really important. Bernie mentioned resiliency as well, and I think that's very, very important. You know, to be able to pick yourself up when things go wrong. So they're the kind of things that we would look for. And I'm pretty confident any company would look for those. But what I really note about Accenture now and how we've expanded is in technology. You know, it's no longer computer science. We've branched off security, cyber. You know, technology has really expanded, and certainly we've experienced that with COVID, with lockdown, how important it is. So from an Accenture perspective, and actually I've now moved into technology space as well, and whilst I've been in IT projects all my life, I'm really impressed at all the different areas of technology. And Lydia mentioned design thinking. I've recently done design thinking at Accenture, and I just find it fascinating, and it's so enjoyable. But what I feel is that sometimes technology that scares people, and they feel they have to have something really focused in there. You know, when you do computer science, it's broad, but there's so many different areas to technology, which is, you know, in so many companies.
Cool.
Oh, I think Amy's frozen.
The first gremlin.
A slight glitch. Well, let's hope she'll be back shortly, and maybe we could follow on. Lydia, could you follow on from thoughts?
Oh, you're back.
Amy, you're back. No.
Oh,
We'll press on. Lydia or Bernie, any thoughts?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lydia. Yeah.
Thanks. I think when I was thinking about this question, I think the main thing that stands out is the collaboration and being able to work with all different types of teams and multidisciplinary teams. I often say that the easiest part of my job is doing the research, but everything that happens outside of it is the hardest part, and that's collaborating online. Yeah, I think that was kind of one of the main things that stuck out to me is collaboration, really.
Very good. And are there particular types of courses that the Genesis looks for recruits from? And in particular, are there Maynooth courses that you think would be of interest?
I think talking to one of the things we have on our kind of list of skills that we look for are design thinking. So I am an advocate within Genesis to hire from the design thinking innovation course, because I know exactly what it entails and what the skills that someone would have learned from that. So I think design innovation is because I've done it and I know it. So that's the one I would recommend.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Bernie?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the same kind of thing. You know, obviously we look for technical depth. You know, if we're hiring from a technical degree or postgraduate degree, that goes without saying. But it's about those. I think they call them transversal skills now, don't they? You know, the communications, the teamworks, the resilience, the creativity, problem solving. You know, every day you're going to hit a problem, and you're going to have to work in teams to come up with very quick solutions. It's predominantly a manufacturing facility that we're working in, and the equipment costs an absolute fortune. So you don't want it idle. So you want those tools running. So, that kind of thing. The teamwork is really important, and communication. So, when you come into interview, we look at those things straight away. We ask certain behavioral questions that we would expect really good kind of detailed answers around a scenario that you might have faced in your short lives to date. Being able to describe, give us an example when you worked in a team. Give me an example when you had more than one solution to a particular problem. How did you go about trying to find the right solution? All this kind of stuff. Being able to communicate that well, be able to talk very clearly about projects that you've worked on and outcomes that they had and things like that. So, and then problem solving. We have a thing called 7-step problem solving. The very first step is actually trying to decide what is the problem. You know, sometimes you find that you can jump in very quickly and start trying to put a solution to something that actually isn't a problem, and you actually haven't tackled the problem correctly. So these are the kind of things that are important and we would look for, you know, even at an early stage at an interview.
Thanks. Are there any particular courses that you'd identify?
Well, I mean, as you know, Ray, we're looking very closely now at data analytics, you know, because we generate a whole heap of data in our manufacturing process. So being able to analyze that data to try and figure out maybe there's the answer to the problem in that data, taking data from all sorts of different sources as well to generate a bigger picture of what the solution could be. So as you know, at the master's level, we have paid particular attention to the data analytics masters that you have. But we hire from all areas of engineering, computer science, and all the sciences, the physics, the chemistries, because they all play a big role in what we do. You know, equipment engineering needs electronics, it needs mechanics. And just outside of the factory as well, we have a whole heap of activity to do with like water supply, energy supply, waste neutralization, and et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, 2/3 of the technical staff will be involved in that aspect as well. Like, you know, so every area of science and engineering is applicable. But I like the data analytics right now because that's a new area that we really are moving into thick and fast.
And I should thank you, Bernie, as well for Intel support in sponsoring a number of scholarships in that area last year. And that's a huge benefit to the students who are on it, and very much appreciated. Amy, we lost you for...
I'm so sorry. Yeah, you lost me midway. I'll just add to what I was saying in terms of what I mentioned, technology. I should add that we don't have any specific degree, course, or postgrad that we hire from because of the diversity of our work. And, you know, you're going to get on-the-job training coming in, unless you're going in specifically as a developer or with specific skills. But we hire from a very broad range of courses. I had friends that have genetics degrees and law degrees. What Bernie said about problem solving, again, the ability to learn is very much what we look for, and the problem solving, and the other areas, communication, teamwork, resiliency. So that can be from any degree course.
Okay. Thanks. A question that I'm seeing from the audience that I think is really interesting is just in your organizations, approximately what percentage of people would have postgraduate qualifications as opposed to undergrad or not even a degree? So anybody got any thoughts on that? Amy?
I wouldn't be able to give percentage, but I can certainly say it is a higher percentage now because more and more people are doing postgrads. And a postgrad course does give you an edge over those candidates that don't have a postgrad, especially if it's in a specific area, you know, innovation or otherwise, that you want to go a career path within Accenture. So it's certainly, you know, when I joined 14 years ago, there were very few people, to be honest, with postgrads. Now, I don't want to say 50%, but it is much, much higher because it does give you that leading edge over, as I said, people that don't have a postgrad.
And it is unfair to ask you for percentages, but maybe just that sense of...
Yeah, definitely much higher because, as I said, for the reason that you have this extra qualification, you're automatically going to be, you know, going in the door with something more and puts you on a better standing than those that don't. We do take a lot of people without postgrads, and they are coming in at the same level. But I'm definitely seeing, and I'm not sure if that's because more and more people are doing postgrads and they're doing it potentially because it is harder to get jobs, and that postgrad is going to give you a bit of a leading edge for sure.
Thanks, Amy. And Lydia, does Genesis target any particular level of qualification?
Not particularly. I think what we're seeing a trend is, it's particularly on the design and research team, is that someone would have a postgrad in something that was different to their bachelor's. So it's kind of an opportunity to slightly change career paths, and that's what we have seen. So we have researchers that have a background in IT, but they have transitioned to do UX research and design through like a postgrad or some master's degree. So that's what we're seeing in Genesis.
Yeah. And Bernie?
Yeah, so we would hire a diverse range of folks, like, you know, from level 6 all the way up to level 10. So you know, some PhDs as well across our technical departments. If you look at the you know, the engineers, I would say that we do have, like Amy, a very high percentage have postgrad qualifications. They enter the workplace with additional skills and knowledge, you know, because they've spent a bit more time on things, you know, whether it be technical depth, but also working in teams, doing projects, problem solving, all that kind of stuff. So that's obviously useful. And they come in with that little bit more experience, and then, you know, would probably move a little bit quicker up the way, you know, because they have that extra knowledge and skill with them. But we do hire level 8 as well. And as I say, also the factory floor is really important that we have very good level 6s and 7s. These are the important people who actually are the hands-on, keeping the machine ticking, you know. And the engineers would work with them and try and get improvements and sustaining work done through them, you know. So there again, that shows the importance of communication, you know, that the engineers have to have both into the factory, but also up the way as well to senior management, because if your kit's down, you have to explain yourself away, like, you know. So that just then again shows where that extra knowledge and experience can really play a benefit, you know, right from the start, you know, that communication channel.
Okay, so just another question that a couple of people have asked in the chat. One from Aaron, which is, so great people, you know, might join your companies, but do you look for further possibilities? And maybe is it possible for people to continue to study while working for you? So Lydia?
Yeah, we actually have an reimbursement or money to actually give to you if you want to do more courses. So I actually just in fact completed a kind of a diploma in design management over the last couple of months, and yeah, that's very much encouraged to do and very manageable. I found that course that I did was manageable. So yeah, we definitely encourage that and have money set aside for people who want to do that as well.
Okay, thanks. Bernie?
Yeah, same story inside Intel. You know, continuous learning is very much the way of the business these days. You know, lifelong learning. You probably heard that phrase. It's more and more relevant, and we do enable that kind of thing. I mean, just one of my team, one of my researchers, he did a PhD. Took him 7 years because he was working hard at the same time, but he did get a PhD, you know, in a relevant topic that was very successful. You know, you can do MBAs as well. I've known folks do that. And then at the technician level as well, I have programs in place in an institute where it enables technicians to go from level 6 to level 7 over a couple of years as well. So absolutely. You know, it depends on business needs and business conditions as well. Not everybody gets a pass to do a degree whilst working, but, you know, if there's a need and there's a will, then normally these things are supported at the right times.
Okay. And I would have thought, because the world is so rapidly changing, that there's always going to be a need to learn more. The question just is how to do it.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm nodding my head furiously because we're the exact same. So we've a huge amount of internal learning. So I mentioned I did design thinking. We Accenture launched a new strategy internally a number of years ago. So we've all been upskilling, which I found really, really interesting. We're diversifying to storytelling, design thinking, data fluency. So we run internal, and we're all expected to do that. But we also offer then a reimbursement similar to Lydia was saying, for if you want to pursue a postgrad course or any course of interest to you. A friend of mine was an architect. She joined as an architect. She was really technically strong. I say friend. She was my one of my technical analysts at the time, and she went back and she had a computer science degree while she was working as well. So again, yeah, that would be supported. But we would be very, very strong on learning and development throughout your career. It's absolutely fundamental. We believe and highly encouraged. Yep.
Okay, thanks. And so a really interesting question, I think, is coming, sort of tries to turn some of the discussion on its head and ask the negative question. Is it sometimes disadvantageous to have a postgrad qualification? So basically, might somebody be held back by having too many letters after their name or having done something? Amy, I see you shaking.
I can't get my head around that at all. How on earth could it possibly be disadvantageous? I mean, as Bernie mentioned, you know, the not only are you getting, you know, additional knowledge from a postgrad, but that experience, the diversity of the people that you're working with, and those extra years, you know, the maturity that a postgrad brings compared to the undergrads. I cannot think of one reason why it would be a disadvantage, I have to be honest with you.
Okay.
I totally agree. I can't think of an answer to this one other than no.
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
You know, we need these skills. We need the folks with the knowledge, and we need people who can actually learn as well all the time, you know, on the job, and, you know, acquire new skills as they go. And no, I really don't see any disadvantage at all having postgraduate qualifications. Not in the place like we work.
Yeah. Could I add as well, you know, one thing about it that I think about postgrad is it shows your drive and your commitment. It's quite hard to commit yourself to study for a year. So, you know, that's very much acknowledged that you've actually taken the time to educate yourself further, and you've had that drive to complete your postgrad. So definitely a bonus.
Okay. And Lydia, any thoughts?
Yeah, I can see why someone would ask this question, because I feel like I have loads of education and probably less experience out in the field. But I share the same sentiment with Amy and Bernie. It shows that you have committed to a year that's quite challenging. You know, you have to sacrifice a lot, and you have in-depth knowledge as well. So but yeah, I can see why someone would ask that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So needless to say, I agree, of course, that postgraduate education must be valuable and can only enhance. But generally, I always think a postgrad course only opens more opportunities than there were beforehand, and that it's finding the pathway to those. But I think what I'm hearing from all three of our panelists is technical skills are necessary in some areas, but a broad range of ability to learn is something that is really going to be valued. So can I ask all three of you, are there any don'ts, any negatives, you know, that you'd say to people? Don't do this if you're applying to our organization. Don't make the mistake of portraying yourself in this way or whatever. So Amy?
I would say don't apply to something if you're not interested in doing it. Make sure you're applying to a company or a course that you're interested in. You know, if you want to do a postgrad, please don't do it because you think, oh, it's going to better my work experience options. Do it because you're interested in doing it and you want to learn more about the area. That would be my don't. And similarly from a company, you know, when I spend time going around to universities as well from a graduate recruitment, I think Accenture is a great company, but it's not for everyone. There's fantastic companies out there. So don't, you know, do your homework and apply to wherever you want to, but please, please, please make sure it's of interest to you. Every company is different and it's not for everyone. So don't apply, oh, you think Intel's great, it's got a great name, Accenture's got a great name, Genesis, great name. Don't apply if you're not interested in the work. That's what I would say.
Okay. I think that's really good advice. Lydia?
I'm kind of stuck. I think from being involved in the hiring process, I think some people probably come across as that they know everything, and I think nobody knows everything. So when we're hiring candidates, we prefer if someone is kind of honest about what they don't know and where they need to improve, along with understanding what their strengths are. So that was just the first thing that popped into my head. And yeah.
Okay. Bernie?
You know what? It's really easy going last, because all you have to do is agree with Lydia and Amy. And I think Amy, Lydia, and myself are going to be great mates after this. We've never met before, but we totally agree with one another.
Totally agree.
So I wrote down, do something that motivates and excites you. You know, we had one of our founding members of Intel back in the 60s say, go off and do something wonderful. And my advice to you is to think about that and do exactly that. So I agree with Amy. And then I also agree with Lydia. You know, I would argue that the microprocessor is probably the most complex product made by human hands, right?
Yeah.
So don't come into a place like Intel and think that you know everything. You're not a black belt at all, right? You know, it took me years to understand what it really was that I was doing. And maybe I still don't fully understand some of the stuff I do, you know? So, you know, you'd always be continuously learning, you know? Take the time to do the learning, build the team and the network around you to help you do the learning and solve the problems. And don't worry about trying to make a name for yourself. We commit to team rather than the individual at Intel. And if your team is doing well, you will be noticed. It's just a matter of nature, you know, it'll just happen organically on its own. So my advice is, you know, do what you love. Don't think you know everything, and just take the time to learn and grow, and everything else will take care of itself. That would be my advice.
I actually have one small other thing that I did know when I thought about this was it was a mistake that I made. So I had done a computer science degree and I had in my head that my only option of a job was to be a developer. I figured computer science, code, wasn't great at coding. What I would say is don't think you have to work in the area that you've studied in. You know, an education and a degree, an undergrad and a postgrad, it gives you these wider skills. It gives you knowledge, but more importantly, it gives you the ability to think, to work in teams. So if you find you've done something, you know, and Lydia gave a great example of she studied one thing and then she went into something different. Don't feel that you have to apply to companies specifically in your area. And equally in the working world today, we don't have to stay in the same company. We can move around, and we're not necessarily, yes, you're bringing a certain amount of skills, and maybe this relates to that question about, you know, the experience you're bringing, but don't feel that that's the only thing that's valued by companies. They value you as a person and your ability more so than necessarily the direct experience and knowledge that you have. And it's this ability to learn, it's the drive, it's the other skills that you can turn around. So that would be my other piece of advice on don'ts.
And thanks for that. And I'll offer one as well, just since I'm here. I think, don't say you're a perfectionist. I've only got one perfectionist, and that person, as Bernie was saying, it's just so, you know, there's so much in the world that we can't possibly be on top of it, and neither can we be perfect in our endeavors towards it. A question: are you interested in recruiting people who aren't, you know, the typical 24, 23-year-old graduate? How do you view people in mid-career who might be looking for change or upskilling?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had all my postgrads done. I was 28 starting my job, so give my age away now. Absolutely. And this is the beauty of the world we're in now. There is no norms. There's no one singular path. And I think it very much encouraged the diversification. And it goes back to the point about doing what you're interested in. If you can articulate your story, here's my path, but you know what? I found this new interest and I want to pursue that. It's about being honest and confident to bring that story. So definitely, you know, if you want to change career paths, it might mean that you might have to take a step back. You mightn't be able to jump to the same level that you're going in at. But I think if you're interested in something, I would encourage that's something that you should do. Because again, you know, life is short and it's about doing what you're interested in. And if your interests change, I would strongly encourage that. From a personal perspective, and again, I think there's a huge amount of respect, certainly from companies, for you being bold enough to make that move, and that would be very much respected.
Great. Anybody want to add to that? Or
Yeah. I mean, Intel. It depends on you know, what level of hiring we're at. I mean, you guys that know the area where the university and Intel are located, you'll see there's a large building going up right now on our campus. So there's a big new factory being built, and that will mean that in the coming months there'll be a large hiring effort, and there'll be a mix of graduate recruitment and experienced hires. You know, we might take some of our experienced staff out of our existing operations and put them in the new one. That's kind of a natural thing that you would do, because they're you know, they're almost the black belt, that I described in the last answer. So we need them over there to pull the new technology node over. So you will need to replenish the experience. So it depends on what's been done in terms of a project at the time, but we do have both hiring styles, graduates and experience. And the other thing I will add in here as well, I think Amy was alluding to there as well, is diversity of thought. You know, sometimes it's really great to bring in a different perspective. I mean, this is the whole idea about diversity and inclusion that we hear so much around today. I mean, we're trying very hard to ensure that we have, you know, a good representation of technical females right across our whole organization. In fact, we actually have set specific goals for that up to 2030. You know, it's too low right now. There's not enough technical female in the world. And the problem that you have as well is there's not enough girls maybe taking up, you know, STEM courses at second level and then ultimately at third level. So we're trying very hard to fix that. But it's not just the gender. It's different cultures. It's different subjects altogether. I mean, you know, you bring in someone with a psychology degree, they have a different way of facing a problem. You know, I keep talking about an example I heard of inside Intel. It was a design issue. We wanted to produce a universal charger for, you know, all the things that you want charging, whether it be your watch, your earpiece, your iPhone, whatever. We just wanted one charging system. And it wasn't allowed to be a mat, right? Because they're already there. You know, people have already designed those. And the guy in charge of this was having real problems trying to get his creative things going on, you know. And he came home one night on a Friday night, and his boss had told him, if you don't get this done in the next couple of weeks, you're out. You know, this was the US. This is what happens, right? And he said, his wife said, why are you in a bad mood? So he told her the story. I'm under pressure here. And she just said, well, you know, when I go to bed at night, I take all my jewelry off and I put it in a bowl. Bang, all of a sudden, right? Just a different perspective, a different way, just a different thing that they do. We have the charging bowl. Everything goes in the bowl and bang, in the morning, everything's charged up. There you go. There's the answer. See what I mean? It seems really kind of simple, but it's missing. So diversity of thought, so bringing people in from all sorts of different backgrounds, you know, it's an experiment maybe to start with, but it has to be tried.
That's great. Listen, we've got just 2 minutes left. And so I'd like to just ask you very finally, Maynooth University's got a very positive relationship with all three of you and your organizations. But maybe could I just ask you, so what do you like about the way Maynooth portrays its postgrad education? What's the value that you see in that? So it's very quick, it's just a couple of words each, please.
For me, because I've been involved with Maynooth for a long time, I'm really impressed with the range of the postgrad courses that you're currently offering. It's really diversified. They're really interesting, very unique. You know, Lydia's give an example of the one that she has done in the innovation, and there's a couple of other ones I can't think off the top of my head that I remember reading going, wow, that's really impressive. So I'm impressed at the range that is currently available.
And there are 75 distinct masters across all.
Right, like that just says it all, you know. That for me, for Maynooth University, is really impressive.
Great, thanks, Amy. Lydia, any thoughts?
I agree with Amy. I think it's the range and just answering to what's going on in the industry or what's going on in the world at the moment. That's what I would say. And just, I think the way that the courses are communicated are pretty clear. And I always felt that there was, you know, a very clear call to action to reach out if you ever needed to understand more about the course. And I think that's something that stood out as well.
Yeah. Bernie?
Again, my answer's been given. So in 2 words, endless possibilities.
But that's great. And what a really positive note to end on. Everybody in the audience, I hope you find that stimulating and informative. And you are hearing from the horses' mouths as to some of the things that they look for in postgrad. So I'd really like to thank Lydia from Genesis and Amy from Accenture and Bennie from Intel and everybody who's been listening. And I wish you every success and fulfillment in your future endeavors. Listen, thank you all, panelists, and good night, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.